How'd we do last week? Ooh, Pete, winning week again.
In fact, he was actually losing. You got back in the lead with this past week's performance, Pete. So kudos to you.
Yeah, back on top by one game.
Let me say this, too. I was 7-0 with my best bets on the Pick 6 podcast.
Were you?
Yes.
I'll make sure to let Will Brinson know about that.
Oh, he'll hear about it.
So you were 7-0 on the Pick 6 podcast. That would make you, what, 2-7 the rest of the way on your picks on this show last week?
Well, I put some over-unders and stuff like that on there, too.
Okay.
Oh, you went back to the over-unders.
Yeah. Had a teaser that I gave out, too.
Really?
Yeah.
It's you. A savant now.
Yeah, I'm a savant.
As Brady Quinn and Pete Prisco, I'm Chris Hassel. We're going to pick every game.
We're just happy we could be on
spread.
your show since you open, you're the star, and we just roll in
Yes,
after.
well, you guys have to wait your turn.
That's right.
While I set the show up for
Brady started doing it before you even got finished.
There's some big lines.
Big,
goodness.
big.
And you understand this one. Eagles are unbeaten. Texans have one win. Eagles minus 13 on the road.
Yeah, you understand it because of how bad Houston's looked, how good Philly has looked, but it is on the short week. It is in Houston. It seems a little inflated to me. And look, I said this to you before we started the show. I want to take the Eagles. I want to lay the points. The problem is, and history would tell you, like usually lines this big, it doesn't end up being that way. There's a lot of parity right now in the NFL. I think if you look at the Eagles too, at least defensively, and you look at how these two teams match up, this could be a Dameon Pierce game where all of a sudden you see them kind of hang their hat on the rushing game. The Eagles have been kind of middle of the road, at least in regards to yards attempt or yards, rushing yards as far as their rankings go. This might be an opportunity where Houston can stay within this number on the short week. So, look, I just don't want to set the precedent of having to give up to a home team, giving a road team giving away 13 points. So I'm going to go with the Texans here. I do not feel good about this, though.
I'm going to take the Eagles, and I don't feel good about it. I mean, it's one of those games. It's short week. You get quick turnaround. You don't get a lot of work in, but that can also work in favor of the Eagles. They're hard to prepare for.
Yeah.
When you're a defense and you're trying to prepare for that offense on a short week, it could be a real problem for them. So that's the reason I think it's going to be trouble for the Texans. I had the Texans as a pick last week. Boy, that was rotten. And I'm not going to go back to them. I'm taking the Eagles.
I'll tell you this much. If I'm Lovie Smith, I'm taking Derek Stingley, and wherever A.J. Brown goes, I'm putting him on him. And they're just isolated the whole game one-on-one and not allow what we saw last week.
Lovie Smith does, though.
I know it's not, but a lot of times when you have a unique offense with this sort of personnel, you have to get outside your comfort zone and say, maybe we're going to play a little bit more man-to-man, or maybe we're going to find a way of putting Derek Stingley on a guy who could literally take over a game like he did last week versus Pittsburgh.
I would play more man against Jalen Hurts, too.
When you look at Thursday games dating back to 1970 in the NFL, because they always play on Thanksgiving, right? Thursday games, teams that are double-digit favorites, 27-14 against the spread. That bodes well for the Eagles. It is now time.
You want to
No, I'm going to stay hold with my pick.
Pete, you stepped on it. It's the spinning top of the week.
It is the spinning top of the week, and I watched this tape. I watched a bunch of tapes, but this one made me.
Notre Dame guy?
No, there's no Notre Dame guy this week.
Wow, because you got called out last week.
The Las Vegas Raiders offensive line was awful against the Saints. And I tell you what, I picked a bunch of plays out. It seemed like the entire game there were guys in the backfield. It was awful across the board. I didn't pick anybody in particular, but look at this. That's Colton Miller. He's their best offensive lineman. What is he doing? I mean, it's just terrible all across the board. And you could take any one of them, and it was a group thing. And Derek Carr held the ball a little bit at times, and the coverage was pretty good on the back end. But look at this. I mean, come on.
See, it looks like Velcro coverage out there. There's no separation.
It's amazing. And Devontae Adams was sick. He didn't get open. There were plays. He looked like he jogged a couple times too, but that's a whole other story. But, I mean, look at this. That's the whirly bird. The center doing the whirly bird, and he just can't get out there and handle him. That's what that block is actually called.
Part of that scheme, though, too. I mean, that's just a play that if you're having a hard time protecting.
Teams do that, though. That's called the whirly bird. You know that.
I understand. I've been in Josh McDaniel's system. I understand what he's trying to accomplish.
But he gets out there.
Trying to isolate and get a one-on-one match from the backside.
He goes from whirly bird to Olay. I mean, we might as well put a red cape up. It was bad. And that, by the way, those clips, I had a bunch more.
It was bad.
It was really bad. And look, when you know how Derek Carr is, when he starts getting pressure around him,
what does he do?
he melts.
What does it look like?
It's not the glazed look. It's just like the herky-jerky look. He was terrible last week. They were Devontae Adams
I'll
was
put it this
sick,
way.
didn't get open.
This is how bad they were. They didn't cross the 50. They never crossed. Not until Jarrett Stidham
Late
came
in
in
the
at the
game.
very end of the game.
Late in
The
the
last
game.
2 minutes of the fourth quarter.
And he got
when
sacked.
Jarrett Stidham
And he
came
got
in the game.
sacked too, by the way.
That's
when
how
he came
bad
in.
they were.
It was
awful.
really bad. And they go to Jacksonville this week, and that's not a,
What?
That's not a great
Your
pass
powerhouse
rush.
that got
No,
beat
that's
London?
not a great pass rush.
That one last week.
So if they can't protect this week, that's a problem for the Raiders.
That'll be a matchup of 2-win teams. We'll pick that one in just a little bit as we continue on picking every game against the spread with Pete Prisco and Brady Quinn. Here are your 1 o'clock games on CBS. And there's one with a big spread, Bills at Jets. The others, a tight game. Patriots hosting the Colts. Dolphins are at the Bears. Raiders in a virtual pick'em at Jacksonville. Speaking of a pick'em, we're going to pick them. Let's start with that Bills-Jets game. Usually when a 5-3 team hosts a 6-1 team, it's pretty close to a pick'em. Not
Right.
this one. Not when it's the Bills and the Jets look like they did last week.
Well, help explain it to me, because I'm on the side of the Jets here. You know, I've been getting all this grief from all these Jets fans. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take those 13 points at home. They're a home dog. They should win this, right? Or at least keep it close.
You're taking a lot of big numbers. If Buffalo didn't play as badly as they did in the second half the other day, I might lean to the Jets, but they were bad the second half the other night. Josh Allen threw 2 picks. He's not going to do that again. He's going to go in and light up the Jets. And the Jets have quarterback issues. You want to pull out the scales? You want to pull the scales out? I mean, we will
Pull 'em
never.
out.
If we pull the scales out right now, we'll never use them again. They're broken. They'll be destroyed. It'll be just a thump, and the chain will break, and everything else. So we can't pull them out. You know how this goes.
Are you throwing the talent on Zach Wilson already?
I got to see more. I'll give him more. He was terrible last week.
Yeah.
Terrible. What is all the spinning and running around he does? Just play quarterback. Go
You
back
could have
and-
named him the spinning top.
Yeah, he was terrible last week. They're going to blow him out. The Buffalo Bills are the much better team. They will blow out the Jets in this game.
I think what got exposed was the fact that they really relied on Breece Hall
Correct.
for their offense over the past few weeks. They didn't have him anymore. They traded for James Robinson. He's not up to speed yet. You still got Michael Carter, but it seemed like that was what was an issue. It was a work in progress.
Oh, Elijah Vera Tucker, too.
Elijah Vera Tucker hurts, and that's something they're going to have to live without for a while. The tough part is in this one is you just can't keep pace. I mean, I don't know that this Jets offense, can go throw for throw with the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, what this team can do, and then how the Bills' defense is built to get after opposing quarterbacks and cover down. So it seems like it's an uphill battle, but like I said with the first game, look, Philly's the better team versus Houston. There's no doubt about it. But that's just too big of a number.
Sauce Gardner on Diggs.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine that would be the case.
So Gabe Davis goes for about 9 for 180.
Well, and we'll see if the Bills can run the football, but it's too big of a line for me. For a home underdog in the NFL,
It's a big number.
I'll
I
take
normally
the 13
would.
points in the Jets.
If they had blown out Green Bay, then I might say, okay, but they got to get back refocused again. They didn't look great in the second half.
The Jets have Zach Wilson at quarterback. That's, I think, what a lot of people need to know. And only Kenny Pickett has a worse quarterback rating at this point than Zach Wilson.
a lot of heat from Jets fans. I'm trying to tell people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You'd think they're 5-3, everybody'd be jumping with joy, but not after that game last week. Let's move to another 1 o'clock Eastern time game on CBS. It's the 4-4 Patriots and the 3-4-1 Colts. Both these teams hard to figure out. Colts reeling, firing their offensive coordinator and making some trades as well.
I'm not sure what to make it of either, right? I mean, you go through the quarterback transition from Matt Ryan to Sam Ehlinger, who's a very different quarterback as far as his skill set, even though I thought he played well enough to give them a shot at the end. I mean, I have no idea how Michael Pittman dropped that ball at the end of the game. I mean, it was a perfect pass in his hands. It sets them up with a chance to win.
He might have gone.
He might have gone.
Yeah.
And so it's a shame, and you could tell clearly that impacted how that thing was going to end. But the defense stepped up. They played better last week. All that being said, it's tough to predict anything with the Patriots at home. I think, again, young quarterback going up against the Bill Belichick defense, that's always the mismatch to me that I'm looking for. So even though Mac Jones is struggling, the offense hasn't got it going, I'm going to lay the 5.5 points here. New England always seems to take care of business at home versus a young quarterback like Sam Ehlinger.
Except the young quarterbacks who can move.
He can't move the same way some of the other guys can.
Justin, but he can. He can move a little bit.
Not
he can
like
run.
that.
He's not Justin Fields, but he can move. He's not Michael Vick, but he can move. And that's given Bill Belichick's defense his problem. Maybe they decided they're finally going to realize they can spy a guy if they need to at some point in their history because they didn't spy against Justin Fields. It was a bad plan. I like the Colts in this game. We've seen the Colts run the football, and Mac Jones is not playing very well. I mean, let's be honest. He's just not playing good football.
It's hard, though, watching their offense to see how they ever get him into a rhythm. There's no rhythm or rhyme to anything they do on offense. I mean, you watch them, and some of the play calls are so predictable. Oh, you got a loss on first down, and now it's second and long. What are you going to do? Screen. I mean,
The quarterback defender has arrived. The quarterback defender has arrived.
It doesn't matter if it's Bailey Zappi. It doesn't matter who you put back there.
You're going to defend them.
It's not that.
If
it's
I
the
was the
fact
quarterback
that
of
if
the
you
New
watch
England
the
Patriots
scheme,
today, you would defend
If
them.
you knew the scheme, I would defend you.
Yeah.
Because I'd say, look at the offense.
That's what I mean.
And I say, there's no rhythm, there's no flow right now. And that's as much as
has not looked good.
That's as much of Matt Patricia as anything else. Doesn't matter if it's Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi. There is no flow to that offense.
I get it. He's not a great offensive coordinator, but he hasn't looked good either.
He hasn't played his best football. There's no doubt about it. Probably not since the first half of last year.
Let's not defend him.
I'm laying the points on them here. You're on the other side of this one.
We're gonna get a special alarm when the quarterback defender shows up.
I'm just saying, I'm laying the points. You're on the other side.
Yeah.
We'll keep track, just
Okay.
like we did with Denver and Jacksonville
Okay.
last week. And who won that one?
Okay, you did. It
Okay.
was close though.
Let's move to another game, 1 o'clock Eastern on CBS. It's the Dolphins, 5-3 overall, 5-0 when Tua completes the game, starts and finishes the game. And the Bears and Justin Fields in this offense is looking better, but the defense did not look good last week.
No, it didn't. And I think it's going to be hard for them to be able to match up with the speed of Miami. And I'd typically, again, I'd lay the 4.5 points. But I like the progress that I'm seeing from the Bears. I think they're going to be able to run the football. I think Justin Fields is going to continue to progress versus a defense for the Dolphins that hasn't been that great, I'll be honest with you. And in particular, I think they're going to be able to run the football at home. So I think this is a tighter game. Dolphins do win, but I think the Bears can keep it within the number. So I would take the 4.5
What kind of a process is it? You go out and trade for a Bradley Chubb. I mean, can you expect to see him in a handful of plays?
pass rush special situations like that? That's what I would assume.
Quarterback, get quarterback. I mean, that's basically, right?
It's a little more complicated than that, but in must-pass situations.
Think about it. He's probably flying there today. He's going to get work in on Wednesday and Thursday. So you see quarterback, get quarterback. The only problem is
comes down to
that
terminology,
quarterback
how different
isn't
it is.
see quarterback, get quarterback because he
can run.
He's moving. So, look, I like Miami in this spot. I just don't think the Bears are very good. You talk about a defense that traded away a middle linebacker as a leading tackler.
Right.
You trade away Robert Quinn, who was one of their better pass rushers, and they have a bunch of young kids. I think that's going to be a problem. Look, I've been hesitant on Tua. I have. And I said it this week. I've been wrong about Tua.
I mean, he's doing stuff that even Dan Marino hasn't done
did.
before in his career. Can you imagine that? Doing stuff that Danny Marino has never done
Fouts
before.
for that matter.
What is it that he's done that Danny Marino hasn't done before?
Threw for 350 in a game, 3 touchdowns, no picks,
And 80% completion percentage. Wow.
But if Danny Marino was playing in today's game with those rules, with those
99%
receivers,
completion
he's thrown
percentage.
for 655.
While eating a bowl of pasta.
655 and completing 75%. Because he won't complete 80 because he's going to go down the field a little more.
Are you guys at all concerned? Because I've seen some people on social media say, wait until the weather turns and it gets colder and it gets windy.
Because it's cold in Miami.
This offense, no, but when they have to go up north, if they do in the postseason, is that going to change?
We're prisoners of the moment. He's been outstanding. You can't take it away from him. Let's see him do it over the course of the
Put it
entire
this way. Look, the weather's already starting to turn up north in most places. Chicago, it will feel like fall. It might be a little windy. Like, that'd be the first indication would be this game.
Right, because that was a fast track in Detroit last week. Very fast track, and they look like it. Those guys that you always talk about, the baton. Here, you take.
I mean, that's what it is right now. The Dolphins literally have, with the addition of Jeff Wilson, they have arguably probably 4 of the fastest players in the NFL.
But you got to admit, they're much faster in a stadium like Detroit than they will be in the stadium.
100%. That grass is awful.
Oh, yeah,
That's
I
the
was just
worst
thinking
turf
about
there is in
that
the
turf.
NFL.
Oof.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so we got one more game on CBS at 1 o'clock Eastern time, and it's a couple of 2-win teams. Neither one of them feeling great. The Raiders 0-4 on the road this season, coming off that stinker in New Orleans.
Yeah, West Coast team coming to the East Coast. We've seen how that's worked out. I mean, look, it's back-to-back weeks right now, right, for the Las Vegas Raiders. So I'll let you talk about that.
But one's coming from London, though.
That's right. But again, it's a little. I feel like I don't know. I feel like they'll be fine with that. They're used to doing that in Jacksonville. I feel better or more optimistic about where the Jaguars are at this point. So if you're going to give me a point, I think their defense, it will be tested versus Carr. I think they'll be better than they were last week versus the Saints. But I do think this is a spot where Trevor Lawrence starts to get right. I think he starts to get better here. They're not going to get their big trade acquisition from this week's trade deadline.
He won't be playing this year.
He won't be playing at any point for the Jaguars, but I do think we're going to start to see a better performance from Trevor Lawrence moving forward.
I do too, and there's a lot of people that are burying him and calling him a bust and everything else. He made a bad decision on the goal line twice. Yeah. In 2 of the last 3 games, he's made a terrible decision on the boot. Like, hey, Doug, you might want to run the ball from the 1-yard line once in a while too. That might help. But I just think that this is a team that has to learn how to win. And I'm going to date myself. In 1996, okay? I covered that team in 1996, the Jaguars. They were a second-year team. They lost every way. They'd outgain a team by 300 yards, 280 yards, and still lose the game by turning the ball over 5 times. First part of the season. Then they learned how to win. They became a playoff team that year, and that was the foundation for the rest of the next 4 years.
Natron means?
Yes, Natron means, yeah. And you know what? This team doesn't know how to win either. And at some point, they're going to need to learn how to win, and I think it starts this week. They win this week. They've had leads in every one of their games late. They just can't hold them, and this week they will win.
Both teams are going to try to run the football. I mean, after what you saw from Derek Carr, that offensive line versus the Saints, I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Josh Jacobs try to get him going, and same thing for ETN. And I think that rushing battle will dictate this game.
ETN's proven that he can handle the carries between the tackles. There were questions about that, but he can.
Carr has failed to cover 7 straight times as a road favorite. Very slight favorites. The slightest of favorites this week, -1 in Jacksonville. Recapping the picks from Pete and Brady, early CBS games. Only one game you agree on, and it's that Jacksonville
That's the way I like it.
How about that? Lots of disagreement so far. See if that continues. By Amazon, picking every game against the spread. Here is a handful of 1 o'clock Eastern time kicks. The Falcons getting points at home against the Chargers. Bengals just got blown out by the Browns on Monday night. Get to turn around and take on the 2-6 Panthers. Vikings and Commanders, both of those teams are hot. Packers looking to get right finally against the Lions before their schedule gets a lot more difficult. Chris Hassel joined by Brady Quinn and Pete Prisco. Let's start with the Chargers and the Falcons. Chargers field goal favorites here. They have not been able to stop the run, and Atlanta has been able to run it this season. They're in first place in the division.
Yeah, and I think Marcus Mariota factors into that and the way they go about their business because really they don't have a great passing attack. And so in this one, I'm leaning more towards Atlanta. I'm going to take the 3 points in the home dog here. But it's a bad matchup, I'll be honest with you. I mean, the Chargers are coming off a bye. You know Justin Herbert in this offense, when they ask him to, can throw the football down the field. And that can be an Achilles heel for the Falcons here. That being said, though, this has been a tough, scrappy team, in some people's words, the Atlanta Falcons.
Feisty.
Feisty.
They started dead last in Pete's power ranking.
They did, and they've climbed their way back up to probably still the bottom half. Huh? Where are they at?
Where do you have them now?
They're up in, no, they're in the middle. They're in the middle now.
I mean, are they the top half or bottom half?
They're right about in the middle, I think.
You can't be in
I
the
love how
middle.
Pete never knows exactly what they're ranked.
Either top half or bottom half.
But I memorize where they're ranked.
You should. They're your power ranking.
Yeah.
I don't memorize where they're ranked.
Oh, you're getting old, Pete. Anyway, I'm going to take the 3 points in the home dog here.
You're taking the Falcons.
I am. To cover.
Okay, if Arthur Smith was the head coach of the Chargers, could you imagine how good Justin Herbert would be? I mean, my gosh, because the Chargers' offense is terrible the way they run it. And you saw that. 27th in yards per attempt. With a guy who has that right arm, it's criminal what they've done to that guy. But this is a perfect game to get it right. The Falcons have issues on the back end, and I think he's going to go in there and throw the ball around. I'm with you, though. I'm concerned about the run game of the Falcons. 5.7 per rush allowed by the Chargers. That's awful.
Awful.
I'm taking
That's
Justin
last in the
Herbert.
NFL.
If Justin Herbert doesn't get it right in this game, then they may need to make a change at offensive coordinator.
Wow. It's criminal, though, what they're doing.
Criminal.
That's what you're saying.
It's like taking Dan Marino and running the zone
Marino.
read with him.
Unbelievable.
All right, let's move on to a Panthers team that, quite frankly, should have beaten the Falcons last week if they keep their helmets on and kick an extra point.
Yeah, but
or maybe make
they
a
got a
field goal.
lucky play at the end of the game. Come on.
They did. P.J. Walker made a great play. They're at the Bengals, and the Bengals have to be really upset with the way they played on Monday.
Short week, got blown out by the Cleveland Browns. I mean, they weren't even in the vicinity. And I didn't think the loss of Jamar Chase would impact the passing game that much. Or maybe it's just the Browns, because it seems like Joe Burrow doesn't play well against them. Either way, that's a problem. I mean, you're taking on a team that's been better defensively than the Carolina Panthers. They're starting to find a rhythm offensively with P.J. Walker. Say what you want, but you end up scoring, 34 points in last week's game versus Atlanta. He's starting to kind of, find his rhythm and flow in this one. So 8 points, it's a big line for me for a team in Carolina that I think hasn't completely thrown in the towel in the season. And I don't know that Cincinnati's going to find who that reliable guy is that really falls into that number one receiver for them right now with Chase being out. So I'll take the 8 points.
I did the spinning top yesterday, leading into the game because we had to have it done earlier this week. Jonah Williams might have been a candidate after what he did last night. He was terrible. We talk about not having Jamar Chase. The offensive line reverted back to being garbage last night. That was the bad problem Monday night that was the bad problem for the Bengals and Joe Burrow. He was getting hit. He got sacked. He fumbled. I mean,
the early interception. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like that's been.
That was a tip by the defensive lineman who didn't get cut.
I mean, like it wasn't going really in the right spot.
But I like Carolina here too. I think it's too many. And you mentioned all the variables, the short week, everything else. It's too many points. They showed last week they can score some points. The running game has been good with Foreman. He's been really good back. Christian Wu, they don't need him. They've been running the heck out of the ball. So I'm going to take the points in this one too. It's too many.
8 points too many. All right, let's go to the Vikings and the Commanders. Minnesota's won 5 straight. Commanders have won 3 straight. Vikings 3.5-point favorites.
I'm going with the home dog again. I'll take the 3.5 points. If this number was at 3, I might be on the other side of it with the hook. It's kind of scaring me away. Washington's remained competitive. I mean, bottom line, Taylor Heineke's gone in there. He kind of adds that athletic element to as far as quarterback. It'll be interesting to see how fast they can get T.J. Hockenson up to speed now with that trade. Because I do think he's going to end up being a game changer. I just think it's hard to probably do it in only 1 week's time. Ben Johnson, the OC in Detroit's running a different system than what Kevin O'Connell's running there. So I'm not sure he's going to have as big of an impact. But the reality is this should be a fun game. I think it's going to be, in my opinion, a higher scoring game. I like the over in this one, probably even more so than the spread. But I'll take the 3.5 points.
I'm going to take the Commanders as well. I mean, here's the thing. If the Commanders had lost a couple games, this wouldn't be a big game, right?
That's true.
But they've won 3 in a row.
Oh!
So that's a big game now.
Isn't it?
Yeah, what time's that?
It's not. I just think Commanders, you mentioned it. Heineke played well last week. I think the defense is playing better. You remember early in the season they were having busts in the back end all over the place. I think they're going to hang around this game, and I think they'll win the game.
Really?
I'm going to take.
I'm not saying that. I think it's a close win for Minnesota.
So you're giving them your 1-point win for the Vikings?
Yeah, I would say maybe 2, 3, whatever. I mean, I think it stays within that number, 3.5.
Okay. All right. I don't know.
How about that NFC East, man? Jeez, the only team
Power conference
that isn't over
Power
500
division.
is Washington, and they're 4-4 right now, playing well. Packers sitting at 3-5. They're going to the Lions. It's a must-win because you look at the schedule moving forward for Green Bay after this: Cowboys, Titans, Eagles. If you don't get this, you might be done for the playoffs.
One would think, but this is that tonic to get you right. If you're Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers offense, which really has sputtered and had a hard time having any consistency, getting much going, the Detroit Lions defense is that for you. I mean, bottom line, I feel bad saying that about another professional team, but that's the reality of this. It's a game that.
How do you feel bad about it?
Well, there's a lot of good guys, a lot of young talent, I think, on the Detroit Lions team.
Call them out.
We don't need to call them out. I think with our pick alone, we can go and say, I'll easily lay the 3 points here. They're going to take advantage of what's been a bad defense, a young defense, but a bad defense in the Detroit Lions. And I don't think Jared Goff and the Lions will be able to keep pace, especially when they just traded away one of their best receivers in T.J. Hockenson.
You just called them out. You called them a bad defense.
They have been a bad defense.
They've been a terrible defense.
Yeah.
One of the worst ever. They've been one of the worst. And I thought the Green Bay Packers showed something in the second half against Buffalo.
Did you?
The young receivers started to show up a little bit, and I think they're going to show up in this
nice
game.
play, yeah.
I'm going to take the Packers as well. I think you mentioned it. It's a get-right game. They have to have this game. They're the better team. I'll take the Packers.
By the way, take the Packers, lay the points, and the over. I'll lay those two together.
Anytime the Lions play, you should have. Anytime the Lions play,
yes.
You're taking over. Don't talk bad about the Lions. You don't want to insult the football team. You just did. About 5 different ways.
5 different ways?
You know what you do? You do it in a nice way. I do it in the bang, you slam it down on you, hammer.
Slam it down on a little hammer?
Boom.
Sledgehammer?
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
Take that. Bunch of agreement on this one, except for the Falcons Chargers. You like the Panthers?
We're mushed.
+8 in Cincy. Washington +3.5 at home against the Vikings, and the Packers -3 in Detroit. All right, don't let this sneak up on you. There's only 2 late afternoon games this week.
You know what, that's good because I'm doing the 4 o'clock.
It's a real letdown. Oh, hopefully the games are good. Seahawks, Cards, Rams, Bucks. Let's start with the 5-3 Seahawks, the 3-5 Cards. Yet it's Arizona that's giving points at home.
Yeah, they're at home. Divisional game. I mean, we typically think these games are going to be close, even though the last time these two teams played, it wasn't. The difference here, though, DeAndre Hopkins and a part of this Arizona Cardinals offense. He's been phenomenal since he's come back. I know it's only 2 games, but that's going to be, to me, one of the biggest differences in this outcome because I'm going to lay the points here of the Arizona Cardinals. The way they move him around, the impact he can make. If Kyler Murray can just cut out some of the turnovers, I think this is a team that's going to be a lot more competitive down the stretch now with the way this thing's coming together.
Their offensive line almost made the spinning top of the week, too. They were terrible last week, and so that's always a concern. I know Seattle's not a great pass rushing team, but that's a concern. One thing they did do last week, they got Rondell Moore down the field a little bit instead of all those little bubble screens that they throw at him all the time.
Fly sweeps and stuff.
And I think he can do something down the field, but I'm going to take Seattle. I think Geno Smith is playing good football. I think Kenneth Walker can run the ball, and they are filled with young players who are starting to believe. They have talent, young, talented players. I mean, that draft class last year was phenomenal. 2 starting tackles, the corners, Woolen and Bryant, they're playing good football. I'm taking Seattle to keep it going and grab a hold of even stronger hold of that division.
If
Pete Carroll's done a great job.
He's done a great job, as has John Schneider. If they don't win this, is this where you kind of start to see, hey, it's been a great story, but let's let San Francisco, Arizona kind of start to make
It's November.
I'm just saying.
You know what it is. The pretenders fall off and the contenders emerge.
In November.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who has a better chance to win their division as a big underdog going in, about 30-1 going into the season? Seahawks in the West or the Falcons in the South in the NFC?
I think the Seahawks.
Do you?
Yeah, because I think unless Arizona wins
I
this
think the
game,
Falcons do. 49ers are going to win the West.
if Arizona wins this game, and I do think they will, I think Seattle could still battle back into this thing at some point. I look at Atlanta, I just think Tampa's going to eventually figure it out. And I look at the Saints with the way they played this past week. I think they could eventually emerge.
Of all the teams that you would think in any of the 2 divisions that you would sit here and say right now will be a playoff team, it's the 49ers.
Yes.
So
the tough thing about Seattle, too, is they're relying, you talk about all that young talent, the draft picks, they're relying on a lot of young guys to all of a sudden keep this thing going and move forward.
So you think the 49ers are going to win the division?
I do.
So then why didn't you say the Seattle's the one that has the less chance to win it?
Because I think that's really their best competition next to, depending on how this game,
I don't think Seattle's going to win the division. I think Atlanta still has a chance to win the division. Which one of those 2 teams has stepped up and shown anything so far?
No, nothing yet.
San
But
Francisco
I'm not betting against Tom Brady.
Speaking of, Tom Brady and the Bucs taking on Matthew Stafford and the Rams. This is another one of those games, like Buffalo Green Bay was last week. Going into the season, you circle that game. Wow, that's going to be an awesome matchup. Here we are, both teams under 500 halfway through.
Rams don't do anything at the trade deadline. They need help off the edge. Cooper Kupp's got an injured ankle. It's not as bad as they originally thought, but that's obviously going to impact a passing game that's been pretty woeful this year. So I know the Bucs haven't been good offensively either. I just feel like eventually they will get it together, and it's a tough matchup for a Rams offense that has struggled to come all the way across the country to the East Coast and have to take on this team. So I'll lay the 3 points here in the Bucs. Again, I know they haven't looked good, but they'll start to turn around at some point.
I'm with you. I'm taking the Bucs. I think this is a spot for them to start turning it around. The Rams' offensive line is terrible, and I think it shows up every single week. They just got too much pressure. They don't scare down the field. There's no real speed threat on that offense. I know they're getting Van Jefferson. He played last week, but he's going to get another week in to get back acclimated to playing. But I'm going to take Tampa Bay. If Tampa Bay doesn't get it right in this game, we might start getting the shovels out and start digging that grave.
For who?
For Tampa Bay.
And
Todd
Tom
Bowles?
Brady.
Huh?
Who are you saying, Todd Bowles?
Bury them. They might be done.
A bunch of the TBs, Tampa Bay, Tom Brady,
Todd
Bowles.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Which TB is it?
I mean, if they don't win against this team at home, you have a problem. They're better than that.
I think they have a problem. The question is,
Well, they have a
are they
big
going to have
problem.
enough to
Then they'll have a big
is
problem.
it fixable? Is what the real question
Is it fixable?
I think so.
I've been saying it's fixable each and every week. I thought it would be fixable. Tom Brady will get out from underneath. This is the week. Tom Brady's going to get out from underneath it.
This is the week.
This is the week. If it's not, we have issues.
They've been favored in every game.
Are you going to bring a shovel next week if they end up losing this?
I have to carry it in here.
All right,
I don't even think I have a shovel.
You don't do manual labor.
No, I don't.
Pete, you don't even have a yard. You live in a
I
high-rise,
call-
penthouse suite.
I call somebody to dig a hole.
You have maid
I know
service
guys who
come
dig.
in
I know a lot of guys who.
sheets each
I
morning.
know a lot of guys who dig holes. They bury guys in there.
They agree on the Seahawks Cards over 50. It's the over in that one.
Yeah, we both got the over.
And the Bucs -3.
Yeah.
All right, to the primetime game Sunday and Monday coming up. Titans getting next to no respect despite rolling over the Chiefs last season and rolling into this one on a 5-game winning streak. One of the biggest dogs of the week. This hour of HQ presented by Amazon. Titans and Chiefs, and look at that big old number. Chiefs minus 12.5 on Sunday night. Ravens at the Saints. Ravens are 3-point favorites at the Superdome. Let's start with the Sunday nighter. So you got two teams, Titans, Chiefs, with the same record. The Titans were the 1 seed in the AFC last season. The Titans blew out the Chiefs last season, and they're getting 12.5. We never give them the credit that I think they would tell you they deserve.
And Andy Reid's coming off a bye, and we know that story.
True.
You know, usually the Chiefs take care of business with Andy Reid off of a bye, which is kind of interesting. Why I'm looking at you right now, and we're on the same side on this. But I've been consistent. I said, look, with these big spreads, I'm not doing it. I'm setting the precedent right now. Too many points. So I feel about this one because I do think the Tennessee Titans will roll in there. Mike Vrabel with that I don't care attitude is going to run Derrick Henry as many times as humanly possible so he runs through the entire secondary of the Chiefs. So I don't think the Chiefs win. I think they keep it close within the number here.
You don't think the Titans win, right?
Excuse me, the Titans. I don't think the Titans win. I think they keep it within the number.
Kind of like when they went there in the postseason a couple years ago and ran it and scored a bunch of points, and they thought they were going to blow them out. Next thing you know, they looked up and they were done. But this time around, I think they get the back door. It's going to come in the back door.
Is that how it's coming?
That's going to get it. They're going to cover on the back door because they're not going to stop Mahomes, I don't think. So I do believe that
they did last year. I don't know what they did.
I know.
But 27-3, it was the largest loss of Mahomes' career.
This time around, Henry will keep them in the game, but Mahomes will find a way to win it. I'll take the Titans plus the points as well.
Derrick Henry averaging 130 a game during that 5-game Tennessee winning streak. On Monday night, it's the Ravens and the Saints. And Pete, I get the sense, you had the Saints ranked 6th to start the season. I get the sense that last week is all you needed to see. And you are right back on that Saints bandwagon. You're riding that Mardi Gras float.
Taysom Hill, everyone else, the whole gang.
The gimmick, all of them. I mean, I'm all in on the game. No, I think that defense really looked like I thought it would look last week against the Raiders. They were dominant across the board. The pass rush was dominant. The linebackers played well. The secondary really played well across the board. They locked them up. And now Devontae Adams was sick, but they still limited him to 1 catch, and he didn't look like he was a factor. This week, I think they're going to have a different challenge. You got to limit Lamar Jackson, but I think they're up for it. I think the defense is going to carry them, and offensively with Kamara back in the game. Now, the last couple weeks, they're better offense as well. So I'll take the Saints to win this game.
I am with you, at least in taking the Saints and the points. I'm not going to go that far and say play the money line here.
Win it.
Baltimore's got a little extra time to prepare for this one, right? They're coming off that big win over the Tampa Bay Bucks on Thursday night. I don't know that if this all of a sudden ends up being a shootout. I don't think it's going to be. I think it'll be just under the number. I just don't feel confident that the Baltimore Ravens passing offense at this point, especially versus what we saw the Saints do last week versus the Raiders. So I think that's going to be the difference in this one, that Saints defense you kind of mentioned and talked about, and just that overall defensive scheme for stopping Lamar Jackson in the rushing attack.
All right, you guys disagreed a lot early, but then agreed a lot
We got in
late.
sync.
So if one of you guys gets ahead early, it's going to be tough to catch up this week. Both like the Titans and the Saints as underdogs, and both on the under 48 in that Ravens-Saints game. Amazon brings us this week's best bets from Pete Prisco and Brady Quinn. And Pete, you love the Saints, don't you?
As Rick Spielman says, I'm going back to Mardi Gras, because that's what he calls Bourbon Street. I'm going back to New Orleans. I'm taking the Saints. I think they win this game outright. I think this is going to be the week where they start to serve notice to everybody in the league. They're back.
With Andy Dalton as quarterback?
Yes.
Which is kind of interesting, right? It's not like Jameis got Wally Pipp, did he? He's back, he's healthy, and they just feel like
Wally Pipp. There were a lot of people who thought he would take that job anyway.
Because of how he was in training camp?
Yep.
I've got the over of the Chargers-Atlanta Falcons. We talked about the issues with both teams, right? Chargers should be able to take care of the Atlanta Falcons defense, throwing the football down the field. And the flip side, Falcons should be able to run the football well versus the Chargers. So the over of 49.
I don't see that on here. I see a blank next to your name.
Yeah, I sent a text message.
Oh, okay. In other words, this was a late ad?
It wasn't late. I forgot to send it in the first
I like it.
Now, here's the caveat, all right? Someone's got to tell me if JLC makes the same pick, because I had the same pick as
you
him
did.
last
We
week.
knew it was gone.
I gotta have the ability to change it. I cannot have the same pick.
We had all the best
Why
bets.
is that?
He's the bush.
He's the bush.
He's the bush.
As soon as they put all the best bets up on Sunday,
You cannot do not.
Brady and JLC had the same pick. I said he's done. He's mushed.
Jack, you got to tell me if it's the same thing as JLC. I'm changing my pick. All right,
you're in.
Yep, I'm
Locked
changing.
in.
Or tell him he can't pick the same pick as mine.
You're locked.
He's the mush. I can't have that.
Tell him to
mush.
I'm going to call him and tell him to take your pick.
No, do not do that.
Mush. push.
We got 6 teams on byes this week: Cowboys, Giants, Niners, Broncos, Browns, and Steelers after a record number of trades ahead of the deadline. So a lot of things changing this week as we hit the halfway mark in the season. For Pete Prisco and Brady Quinn, I'm Chris Hassel. Thanks for watching.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.